As New Year approached, the supermarket was packed. Feng Min finished his shopping and squeezed out of the store, his forehead slick with sweat but a smile on his face. His phone pinged with a WeChat voice message. He opened it to hear his eldest son, Hao Hai, asking Dad, "Did you find the puzzle I like?" Feng Min looked down at the box in his hands. "Yes, I found it." Hao Hai cheered and asked, "What about my little brother? He's so young and can't play anything. What gift did you buy for him?" Just as Feng Min was about to answer, a new email notification popped up at the top of his phone. He initially dismissed it, but suddenly felt a wave of panic wash over him when he saw the first few words of the email's subject line. He set the bags down at his feet and quickly opened the email, his heart racing. After just a glance, he felt ice run through his veins. It was a notification from the Human Resources Department of Dingxin Group. They expressed their apologies in an official tone and stated that due to unsatisfactory results from the background check, to avoid potential future conflicts, the company had decided to rescind Feng Min's job offer after discussion. Feng Min held his breath and read the email again, word for word. His mind went blank for several seconds before he remembered to open the original offer letter to compare the sender's email address. It was indeed the same one. This meant there was no mistake and no prank. His offer had genuinely been rescinded.
But why?
During the interview, everything had gone well, and they said he was exactly the person they were looking for. Even just 3 days ago, HR had called to confirm whether Feng Min would be able to start on time after the Spring Festival. Right, the background check. They mentioned the background check. Feng Min snapped back to reality and quickly dialed the HR representative's number. "Sorry to bother you," he said cautiously. "I'd like to ask what you meant by unsatisfactory results from the background check." "My resume is accurate. I've really worked on those projects, so I don't understand why your company decided to rescind the offer." Regarding this, the HR representative paused. "Mr. Feng, I'm very sorry. We don't doubt the authenticity of your resume. It's just that the background check doesn't solely verify information. It also considers other aspects." "Other aspects?" Feng Min, being a technical person, didn't quite grasp this official phrasing, so he asked, "What aspects?" The HR seemed to chuckle. "I'm afraid I can't disclose that. But I believe this position is perfect for me," Feng Min said, tightening his grip on his phone against the winter chill. "I've been studying the open-source framework your company uses since receiving the offer. Even if you don't want me, you can't leave me in the dark like this." The HR hesitated. "Let me be frank, Mr. Feng. Actually, I had a good impression of you during the interview. Although for a development engineer, 35 is indeed on the older side. But your technical skills and project background fit our needs, so we decided to hire you. However, you know that when hiring employees, companies don't just focus on technical abilities. Past work performance and cooperation with other team members are also important to us. Are you implying that my work performance is poor?" Feng Min instinctively shook his head. "But I've had 3 consecutive years of excellent performance reviews. If it's about teamwork, that's even less likely. Our project team has a great relationship. We solve problems together, and you can ask them about this." "What about your supervisor?" the HR asked casually.
What?
"How is your relationship with your supervisor? What did he think of you?" So, it was Wang Zhenyu. Feng Min tightened his grip on the phone even more. "I'm just a programmer, and I'm pretty straightforward. I'm not the type who excels at managing relationships with leaders. But you can't just listen to his side of the story, can you? When I filled out the paperwork, I listed several referees, colleagues from our project team or interfacing departments who know me well." "Mr. Feng," the HR interrupted. "No matter which company you enter, you will have superiors and colleagues. So managing these 2 relationships is equally important. Put yourself in their shoes. If you are a department leader, would you want to hire a subordinate who is difficult to manage? What's more, this subordinate might exacerbate internal conflicts, making you lose face in front of colleagues from other departments. So I'm really sorry." The HR seemed equally helpless at this point. "From our perspective, we actually hoped to proceed with the hiring, but the hiring department disagreed, and we are powerless to change that. I suggest you seize other opportunities as soon as possible." Until the other party hung up, Feng Min didn't say a word. He never expected Wang Zhenyu would be so ruthless. leaving him with no way out. The HR told him to seize other opportunities, but where were those opportunities? Fong Min was born in a small mountain village deep in the mountains. For the past 10 years, and the next 10, he was the only child from the village to get into a key university. Over the years, his parents built a house in the village with his help, and his younger brother got married and started a family because of him. They all took pride in him, while comfortably relying on his support. In their eyes, Fong Min, a graduate from a prestigious university staying in the big city, was destined for a bright future. At first, Fong Min thought so too. After graduating, he joined a large state-owned enterprise. With his strong technical skills and diligent work ethic, Fong Min quickly got involved in core product development. From simple coding to functional module design to participating in system architecture, he had spent 5 years in this process. However, during a drinking session with colleagues after a year-end party, he suddenly realized that even though everyone recognized his technical abilities, he hadn't received a promotion, and even his salary raise was just average. So, Fong Min decided to resign. At that time, the internet industry was booming, and he jumped right in. Wang Zhenyu joined the company on the same day as him. They were around the same age and had similar educational backgrounds, but their personalities were completely different. Fong Min firmly believed he could carve out a path through technical skills and hard work, so he devoted himself entirely to product development. On the other hand, Wang Zhenyu was more interested in networking. Within 2 months, he had gotten to know people from all departments in the company. If it weren't for their shared responsibility for a functional module, Fong Min wouldn't have liked to evaluate others. However, Wang Zhenyu's coding skills were indeed lacking. He would drag others down, then laugh it off, buy a few cigarettes, or take everyone out for a meal to charm them into helping him solve problems he couldn't tackle. Fong Min looked down on such behavior from a technical perspective, especially after discovering that Wang Zhenyu had forged overtime attendance records. The disdain on his face was hard to hide. Wang Zhenyu probably noticed this. Throughout the project development process, the two frequently clashed. Though it hadn't reached the point of open hostility, it was well known that they didn't get along. This wouldn't have mattered much, but over time, while diligent Fong Min was buried in endless work, Wang Zhenyu, who thrived on relationships, continued to rise. Wang Zhenyu first became the project lead for 2 projects and then, last year, transformed into the manager of a newly established department. Meanwhile, after finishing one project, Fong Min was transferred to this department, working with Wang Zhenyu again. Unlike before, Wang Zhenyu was now Fong Min's direct superior. Their relationship shouldn't have turned out this way. During his job search, every time he saw the unread status from HR in the app's chat window, Fong Min regretted being so naive. But at that time, he had no such awareness. Once the project requirements for the new department were finalized, Fong Min was responsible for scheduling and distribution of tasks. The planned project duration was 90 days, but given the development difficulty and code volume, it was clear it wouldn't be completed on time. So, he proposed adding personnel or postponing the delivery by 10 days in the project meeting.
Don't tell me that.
I'm asking you directly. With the current resources, can we finish it in 90 days? Wang Zhenyu asked coldly. No, Fong Min was straightforward. What's the main problem? The volume of custom development code is too large. I've already scheduled 10 person days of overtime. 10 person days isn't enough? How about 20? Wang Zhenyu interrupted him, his finger tapping on the table as he scanned the room full of developers and testers. Guys, we're in the internet business. Time is money. If we go live a day late, other companies might have already launched similar products. What's the use of coming in late? The first mover advantage will be gone. Manager Wang, it can't be said like that. Fong Min pressed his lips together. Even if we launch in 90 days, it doesn't mean other products won't beat us to it. Moreover, there are only 24 days off in 90 days, and working 20 days of overtime is indeed too demanding. I know that. You don't need to say it. Wang Zhenyu interrupted again. This is our department's first project. Do you all know what that means? He looked at the silent people in the meeting room. I know we're short on manpower, but even if I start recruiting right now, it won't solve our immediate problems. So, I'm asking all of you to bear with it a little longer. If we push through, the company leaders will notice us, and I can fight for better treatment for everyone. If we can't make it, then we'll all just have to pack up and leave." After saying this, he turned to Feng Min again. "You've been in development for over 10 years, always considering yourself a tech whiz. What is a true tech whiz? Solving problems under ideal conditions doesn't count. Being able to create solutions even when conditions are lacking is what the company needs from a tech whiz." Feng Min solved the issue. He didn't push everyone to work overtime. Instead, he trimmed some non-essential auxiliary features that wouldn't affect user experience, planning to include them in the next version. This was a reasonable solution and quite common in software development. However, after the project was delivered on time, the credit had nothing to do with Feng Min. In fact, a product manager casually mentioned one of the features that had been cut, making Feng Min the scapegoat. Even though the feedback for the first version was quite good, and Feng Min had successfully implemented that feature in the second version, Wang Zhenyu still rated his annual performance as unsatisfactory. This was Feng Min's first unsatisfactory rating in 13 years as a development engineer. The moment he received the automatic feedback from the OA system, it felt like someone had suddenly hit him with a blunt object, leaving him dazed. His fingers hovered over the keyboard as he stared at the small line of text, his heart sinking, then a surge of anger ignited within him, nearly causing an explosion. He stormed into Wang Zhenyu's office, his face flushed. "We can definitely produce a mock-up for the interface first." Wang Zhenyu was discussing requirements with someone from the product department, and the atmosphere was light and relaxed. Seeing Feng Min, he looked slightly surprised, pausing for a moment at the door before smiling and asking, "What's up? Why did you rate my annual performance as unsatisfactory?" Feng Min clenched his fists, his jaw tight. "Oh, it's about that," Wang Zhenyu replied with a smile. "You see, I have more important matters to handle right now. Can we discuss your personal issue later?" "No, we can't."
What?
Wang Zhenyu didn't expect Feng Min to respond like that. Although Feng Min had always been straightforward, they were now in a hierarchical relationship, and a normal person would typically tread lightly. "This might be a small matter for you, but it's a big deal for me. I've graduated for over a decade, earned countless excellent employee awards, and no one has ever evaluated my work like this." As Feng Min spoke, his chest heaved, and his eyes reddened. "So tell me what I did wrong, or if I've offended you in some way. You must give me an explanation today. I can forego my year-end bonus, but I cannot accept this insult without reason." "Insults?" Wang Zhenyu laughed derisively, seemingly at a loss for words. He turned to his colleagues in the product department, saying, "I'm really sorry, but we might have to continue our discussion later." After politely seeing them out, Wang Zhenyu's expression changed when he returned. "Feng Min, I'm still your boss. Who taught you to barge into a leader's office without knocking?" He pointed at the door. "And who taught you to communicate with a leader in this manner? Since your work is supposed to report to me, I have the right to rate you as unsatisfactory." "What do you mean by saying you've offended me? Are you throwing around accusations here?" Feng Min was left speechless by this series of questions. He was generally straightforward and not skilled in verbal disputes. "Well," he hesitated, "not knocking before entering your office was my fault. I was just a bit anxious. But I completed 6 projects this year, all delivered on time. In terms of overtime hours, I'm at least in the top 3 in the department. Why do others get good evaluations, while I end up unsatisfactory?"
Why?
"You're asking me why?" Wang Zhenyu scoffed. The project requirements were all cut to the next version, so of course it was delivered on time. Besides, just because someone works overtime, does that mean their performance is good? Should I hire a delivery driver to replace you then? They can work from 7 a.m. to midnight. Can you? You? Feng Min was furious. "I refuse to accept this evaluation result." "You refuse?" Wang Zhenyu slammed his phone down on the table. "Feng Min, don't get it twisted. I'm the head of this department. If I believe your work is lacking, then it is lacking. If you feel I've wronged you or am being unfair, you can leave. There are plenty of ordinary developers like you on the street. I don't believe that without you, this department would fall apart." "Leave? Do you think I can't find another job?" Feng Min glared at Wang Zhenyu. almost letting that slip out. Fortunately, he reacted in time. Foam Min was just a bit too straightforward, but he wasn't foolish. He silently left Wang Zhenyu's office and headed straight to the HR department responsible for performance management. Foam Min explained the situation, and the HR representative was quite patient and had a good attitude, but ultimately advised him to communicate well with Wang Zhenyu to find out where their evaluations differed for each task, as this could help improve their work. Communication. It's always about communication. If talking to him were useful, why would I need you? Foam Min suddenly stood up from his chair. So, what do you want us to do? HR shrugged. The department head is appointed by the company, and he is also given evaluation authority. If there's an issue with your evaluation, either provide solid evidence to refute him point by point, or clarify his requirements and improve yourself. Without this process, do you expect us in HR to judge your performance? Foam Min opened his mouth but ultimately returned to his workstation with his head down. His wife had just given birth to their second child, and not wanting her to worry, he kept his frustrations to himself, stepping onto the balcony for a couple of cigarettes. As he watched the smoke dissipate into the night sky, a bitter smile crossed his face. The once proud boy of the village had ultimately turned into a middle-aged man who could only express impotent rage. If he could, he would truly want to resign. But when faced with mortgage payments, car loans, and the cost of formula for his child, how much was his dignity really worth? In the end, Foam Min continued to go to work as usual, writing code, running programs, and discussing test cases, as if the evaluation results had no effect on him at all. It was just that when he faced Wang Zhenyu, he really didn't want to see that face. Foam Min. Just as he was thinking this, Wang Zhenyu, sitting across the conference table, suddenly banged his hand on the table. I'm asking you a question, and you have this attitude? Don't forget it's working hours. As the end of the year approaches and all departments are preparing summaries, anyone who isn't focused on work should just get out. With a whoosh, it felt like everyone's gaze fell on Foam Min. Foam Min's face flushed. Sorry, I didn't hear the question. What was it? What question? We've been discussing for half the day. Can't you listen? Wang Zhenyu said coldly. Do we all have to repeat ourselves just for you? The testing department said we had 7 major bugs throughout the year and that our code quality score would be docked. Manager Wang asked if we acknowledged that. A colleague sitting next to him quietly reminded him. The entire department's major bug count was being questioned, and since his name hadn't been mentioned, not answering would imply he wasn't focused on work. Anyone with a few years of work experience could see that Wang Zhenyu was just looking for trouble. Foam Min clenched his fists. I haven't had any major bugs in my code. As for the others, the testing department didn't provide feedback to me at the time. Smack. Wang Zhenyu picked up his notebook and slammed it down on the table. You, a senior development engineer, only care about your own code? If that's the case, why do you earn 20,000 while others earn 8,000? I could just hire someone for 8,000 to write code. The meeting room fell silent instantly. The air felt like it had frozen. Manager Wang, which critical technical problems in our department haven't I solved? I'm just unclear about the bug situation. How does that mean I only care about my own code? Foam Min met his gaze, his voice unconsciously rising. You solved them all. Wang Zhenyu sneered. You think you're so impressive? Since you solved everything, tell me where those 7 major bugs came from. I don't know. Foam Min answered honestly. No one had ever asked him to handle all the bugs in the department, and he hadn't received any feedback on that. So why should he take the blame? Seeing Foam Min's expression, Wang Zhenyu suddenly stood up and pointed to a colleague nearby. You. Go pack Foam Min's things. He turned back to Foam Min. Foam Min, I'm telling you, this department doesn't need someone like you who is all talk and no action. You leave today. Go wherever you want. I don't need you here anymore. Do you understand? Foam Min stood there in shock, his mind buzzing. When he finally reacted, he found himself holding a large cardboard box, standing outside the company building. Wang Zhenyu, you're going too far. Foam Min dropped the box on the ground and rushed back into the company. However, in just a few minutes, his Access account had been disabled and he couldn't even get through the company's front door. Open the door. Wang Zhenyu, after all these years, what right do you have to kick me out? Feng Min shouted, raising his fist and banging on the glass door. The glass door sounded an alarm, and the HR representative he had spoken with earlier brought him to the reception room. It was then that Feng Min learned the company had planned for personnel optimization, and his name just happened to be on the list submitted by Wang Zhenyu. So, he wanted to get rid of me from the very start? Feng Min couldn't believe it. Even giving me a poor evaluation during the annual review was just to cut me? Not exactly, the HR representative said awkwardly. Every department will have employees who receive poor evaluations. It's just that if personnel optimization is to be conducted, it must be based mainly on performance evaluations. What basis? He's clearly excluding me and making things difficult. So maintaining good communication with your superiors is very important, the HR rep said after a moment of silence. The reception room fell silent again. I actually have a strong attachment to this company. I don't want to leave, Feng Min said, looking down. Why bother? Since you don't get along with Manager Wang. Even if you stay, your future prospects are bleak. The HR representative lowered his voice. Actually, the end of the year is a good time to switch jobs because many are waiting for their year-end bonuses, resulting in fewer competitors in the market. Then if the company is forcing me out, there should be some compensation, right? I saw online that layoffs are N+1. After a long pause, Feng Min said, Technically, yes, the HR representative sighed. But you know the company's current operational situation. While we haven't technically lost money, we're close. So, that number is unrealistic, but I can try to advocate for you. Well, I'll wait for your news. At this point, Feng Min didn't really want to stay anymore. He just hadn't expected to come to work in the morning and be kicked out by the afternoon. Upon reflection, there had been signs all along. For instance, after the project he had recently overseen wrapped up, Wang Zhenyu had kept assigning him to maintain old code or review test cases, all minor tasks that weren't core to the project. But Feng Min hadn't thought about it in that direction. He realized that compared to others, he had indeed been impulsive and naive, with no sense of strategy at all. As he walked out of the office building he had worked in for 8 years and looked back at the gleaming glass curtain wall, Feng Min's eyes suddenly reddened. The news from HR came 2 days later. The company was only willing to offer 4 months' salary as compensation. If Feng Min didn't agree, he would have to go through labor arbitration. To be honest, Feng Min, the HR rep urged, there's a chance you could get more compensation through arbitration. But arbitration and appeals can take at least 2 years. At your age, do you really have that much time and energy to waste on the company? Of course, Feng Min didn't. In those 2 days, he hadn't dared to tell his wife about the situation. He just got up early each morning, took his computer, and rode the Tuyuan bus to the library to write resumes. But 4 months is too little. The new year is approaching, and I might not find a job in that time. Feng Min hid in the stairwell, covering the receiver as he pleaded for more. The HR rep's voice was polite but firm, laced with laughter. Indeed, the joys and sorrows of life often felt disconnected. While his world was crumbling, to others, it was merely a matter of routine. Feng Min fell silent for a moment before reluctantly agreeing. At least, during these 4 months, he could transfer the equivalent of his salary to his wife, concealing his unemployment from her and sparing her the worry. As for what would happen after 4 months, Feng Min felt confident that his skills would secure him a job eventually. Although he didn't voice it, he held on to a shred of hope. However, the job hunting process didn't go as smoothly as he had hoped. Many HR reps, seeing his age and his online profile, wouldn't even allow him to send his full resume. Even when a few HR reps requested his resume, he received no further feedback. It felt like a stone sinking into the ocean. In just 2 weeks, he was so anxious his mouth was breaking out in sores. If he couldn't secure a job before the spring festival, when the golden 3 months came, wouldn't he face even stiffer competition? Just then, he received an interview invitation from Dingxin Group. Feng Min researched the company's business and products thoroughly for 2 days and finally made it to the final interview. He asked for a salary that matched his previous company, but secretly thought he could lower it a bit, only to be surprised when they agreed immediately. This was a fantastic offer, Better platform, better benefits, and with the same salary and stability, it was simply flawless. As Feng Min sighed in relief, he couldn't help but regret not switching jobs sooner. Why had he endured Wang Zhenyu's face for so long? It was only at this point that Feng Min's wife learned that during this time, her husband had been hiding in the library looking for a job instead of actually working. "I knew you hadn't been working overtime lately," she said, patting their small second child in her arms. "You have a degree and skills. If worst comes to worst, just switch jobs. There's really nothing to worry about." How could there be nothing to worry about? Thinking about how his wife hadn't worked in a long time and didn't understand how cutthroat the current job market was, and how he had reached an age where he was often overlooked, Feng Min could only smile. At least he had finally found a job, which meant he could relax for the new year. But Feng Min never expected that just 3 days before the Spring Festival, Dingxin Group would suddenly rescind the job offer.
And it was all due to the background check.
He stood in the cold wind, holding gifts for his 2 sons, staring blankly for a long time before shuffling toward the subway station. When he got home, his eldest son was watching cartoons, while the younger one occasionally shouted, filling the house with noise and warmth. "Hey, honey," his wife waved excitedly when she saw him come in. "This year we're lucky to spend the Spring Festival in our own little home. Come help me decide on the New Year's Eve dinner." "Okay." Feng Min forced a smile. "What does Haohen want to eat?" "Ice cream." "I want Haagen-Dazs ice cream." Haohen jumped off the sofa, shouting. "I'm asking what dishes you want, and you're only thinking about ice cream," his wife chided. The little one echoed him, shouting excitedly. "By the way, honey," his wife turned to Feng Min, "even though we can't go back for the new year, we still need to send money to both our parents, right? Just like last year. 5,000 for the family?" "Sure." Feng Min nodded, but instinctively clenched his palm. He had forgotten about this. Plus, with his sister-in-law's baby due right after the new year, his mother had hinted that the red envelope couldn't be too small. It seemed that compensation wouldn't even last 4 months. That night, while his wife was putting the kids to sleep, Feng Min took out the leftover liquor from when his father-in-law had come to visit and hid on the balcony to drink alone. The liquor burned as it went down, igniting a fire in his chest and stinging his eyes. Feng Min tilted his head back, taking deep breaths, but still found it hard to breathe. Since he could remember, he hadn't cried in nearly 30 years. He never thought that entering middle age would lead him to feel so lost. Suddenly, he recalled the HR rep's words. Think from another perspective. If you were a department leader, would you want to hire a subordinate who would be difficult to manage? Moreover, this subordinate might exacerbate internal conflicts, making it hard for you to hold your head high in front of colleagues from other departments. Why did Wang Zhenyu have to do this? He was the one who kicked Feng Min out. Why couldn't he leave him a way out? Wouldn't any effort Feng Min made to find work ultimately hit a wall with background checks? Was it because Wang Zhenyu was unhappy about Feng Min asking HR for compensation and wanted to crush him like an ant? With that thought, Feng Min suddenly stood up. No, he had to go talk to Wang Zhenyu. He had already lost this precious job opportunity. Wasn't that enough? Feng Min arrived at the company, where the lights in Wang Zhenyu's office were still on. Of course, with the new year approaching, the boss was always keen on who was holding down the fort. He never missed a chance to notice such displays. Standing outside the glass door, Feng Min called Wang Zhenyu. "I want to talk. Should I find a megaphone and shout at the door, or will you open it and let me in?" "Wang Zhenyu, who do you think you're threatening?" Wang Zhenyu retorted through clenched teeth, finally suggesting Feng Min wait on the rooftop. The rooftop was deserted. The wind was strong, blowing back a shred of Feng Min's rationality. He reminded himself to stay calm. Sometimes, a middle-aged man had to swallow his pride. However, he ended up waiting over an hour, nearly freezing, before Wang Zhenyu finally arrived, cigarette in mouth. "Manager Wang," Feng Min said without beating around the bush. "Did Dingxin Group call you?" "Dingxin? I don't know what you're talking about." "You know, about the background check." "Oh, is that what you're talking about?" Wang Zhenyu exhaled a smoke ring, a half-smile on his lips. "What's wrong? Can't take the heat? Didn't think this day would come when you were stirring up trouble, did you?" "What do you mean I was stirring up troubles?" Foam Min clenched his fists, stepping closer. You rated me poorly. What's wrong with appealing to HR? Fine. If HR won't help, I'll accept that. I'll just get back to work. And what happens next? He pointed towards the safety door. Ask the project team if I've complained about my evaluation even once. Why do you get to undermine me in front of everyone? Just because I'm your boss, Wang Zhenyu said dismissively, his eyes filled with disdain. Foam Min, you're not young anymore. Why can't you see the bigger picture? I know you've never respected me since I joined the company. Sure, you're technically skilled and arrogant. Keep that hidden. Putting everything on display is a disadvantage for me, not you. Can't you figure that out? At this, Wang Zhenyu flicked the ash off his cigarette. The ash was blown by the wind, landing on Foam Min's head and face, just like his current predicament. You? Foam Min stepped forward, grabbing Wang Zhenyu by the collar. What? You want to hit me? Wang Zhenyu scoffed. Can't find a job, so you want to live off public funds? Foam Min, don't blame me for reminding you that you have 2 sons to raise. Speaking of which, you really have guts, having a second child with such little ability. Foam Min glared at him, gritting his teeth, breathing heavily. After a moment, he slowly released his grip. You're right, I still have 2 sons to care for. I apologize, I was wrong. I shouldn't have looked down on your technical skills, and during the project, I shouldn't have disregarded your timeline. You think it's right to rate my work poorly? I shouldn't have appealed to HR. Lowering his head, Foam Min continued, Can you forgive me this once? I hope Manager Wang could speak a few good words for me in the future. Are you asking me to lie during the background check? Wang Zhenyu stared at him for a moment until Foam Min started to feel a bit flustered, then replied coldly, That's not what I mean. Foam Min quickly explained, Although my actions were inappropriate in the end, I've always been diligent in my work. Foam Min, Wang Zhenyu interrupted, I'm someone who says what I think. If someone asks me about you, I have to be accountable. So, in the workplace, you must avoid making mistakes, especially not to sacrifice everything for a little money. Don't you agree? As Wang Zhenyu finished his cigarette, he flicked the butt into the trash can and slowly turned towards the safety door. Wang Zhenyu, you're being too much. With red-rimmed eyes, Foam Min pulled out a Swiss Army knife from his pocket and lunged at Wang Zhenyu. Hearing the noise, Wang Zhenyu turned just in time to see the blade glinting in the moonlight. Foam Min, what are you doing? He shouted, dodging to the side and sprinting through the safety door. What am I doing? Foam Min pursued relentlessly. You should ask yourself what I've done to deserve this. If you won't let me live, then no one should. Saying this, he recklessly lunged at Wang Zhenyu. The staircase was steep, and the Swiss knife grazed Wang Zhenyu's shoulder as they tumbled down together. Wang Zhenyu's head slammed against the railing, and he cried out in pain, yet he didn't loosen his grip on Foam Min's wrist. Realizing he couldn't move his right hand, Foam Min threw down the Swiss knife and swung his left fist at Wang Zhenyu's face. Foam Min, calm down. This is intentional injury. You could go to prison. Wang Zhenyu dodged and yelled at the top of his lungs. I'm not afraid of dying. Why should I fear prison? Foam Min had completely lost his reason, raining blows down on Wang Zhenyu, leaving him bleeding from the nose. Fortunately, they were in the office area, and colleagues heard the commotion and rushed out, pulling Wang Zhenyu away from Foam Min's fists. Call the police. I want to report this. Wang Zhenyu gritted his teeth. Foam Min, I won't let you get away with this. Just wait for prison time. Fine, I'll wait. Foam Min's eyes were bloodshot. But remember, Wang, my life is already ruined. As long as I get out one day, I will make you pay. When Foam Min returned home, his children were already asleep, and his wife was anxiously waiting in the living room. With no other option, he had to lay everything out. If I get sentenced, he wiped his face, you might as well sell the house. At least it'll keep you and the kids afloat for a while. What about the future? His wife cried, hitting him on the shoulder. It's just a job. If we lose it, we can find another one. We could even sell the house and go back home. Why put yourself on the line like this? Why indeed? After years of hard study and hard work, why should he let someone bully him like this? He had just seen hope. He could have gone back to a stable life. Why are you so stubborn? We can't let this go on. Let's go find your boss and give him medical expenses. Plead with him not to call the police. His wife stood up, crying as she changed her clothes and dug out their bank card. I won't go. I didn't do anything wrong. Foam Min's eyes were still red, but his expression gradually calmed. A cornered rabbit bites back. I could serve 2 years, but when I get out, I'll definitely kill him. You're talking nonsense. You stubborn mule, stubborn mule. His wife grabbed his arm, sobbing uncontrollably. While the couple was embroiled in chaos, to their surprise, the police did not come knocking all night. Just before dawn, Foam Min received a text from Wang Zhenyu. Foam Min, we were colleagues. You've struck me. Let's put the past behind us. I won't mention it to anyone else, but you should keep your distance. Only then did Foam Min truly breathe a sigh of relief. Mutual destruction? After the impulse, that's not what he wanted. But Foam Min was certain that the self-important Wang Zhenyu wanted it even less. Alright, stop crying. It's over. He hugged his wife, wiping her tears. Let's get some sleep. I still need to send out my resume. He just didn't know if he'd find another company like Dingxin. And he wasn't sure how much longer he could stay on the technical path. But one thing was certain. As a middle-aged man, a husband, and a father, retreat was never an option.